Anthony Becht is a guy that's from the area. Okay, he went to college at West Virginia. That's where I met him.
Yep.
He gets drafted in the first round by the Jets, and then kind of bounced around with a couple of organizations, and he is now based out of Tampa. So, as a guy who grew up in Philly and ended up becoming a professional player, I'm wondering, Ant, if this game had a little different meaning for you as you were watching it as a NFL alum and a guy who works in the league, but the team you grew up watching is in that game on Sunday.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, I definitely wanted to see the Eagles win the game. Although I took all that out of the equation when I actually picked the winner for the game, and I picked the Patriots. So, they checked off all the boxes that I thought them and basically all the other teams haven't been able to do. And I just kind of went with that because that's what the Patriots have, come to become as far as this team that no matter what the situation, they're really able to either hold a lead or come back and capture the lead. And they did that for a fraction, for a little bit in that fourth quarter, but it's a tremendous game of execution by the Eagles across the board for 4 quarters.
Yeah, obviously everyone's talking about that fourth down play. Now, I was thinking about you because if you were the tight end in Trey Burton's spot, do you complete that pass?
I'll tell you, I don't know, man. I think it worked well with Trey because he's not a traditional, 6'4", 6'5" kind of tight end, so he kind of hides behind everybody. But, yeah, I would like to say, that I could make that pass as well if I was given that opportunity.
How shocking is that? I mean, not only to call the play on fourth, like to say we're going for this, but to pull out a play like that. Like, what goes on in the huddle when a play of that design is called in any situations, let alone the Super Bowl on 4th and 1?
I think the first thing that happens is there's a bit of anxiety, within the key components or players in that play. Just because you probably have worked on that play, and I think Doug called it Philly special, which they probably have worked on maybe once or twice a week for several weeks. So, in practice you probably had some ups and downs, a crappy throw, you had an overthrow, you had a drop football, and maybe it never came together cleanly except a few times. And then when you run it in the game, you're obviously going to surprise a team, and you're so anxious to make the play happen that sometimes something goes wrong there. But, I think I credit Doug Peterson for having a confidence in his players to go out there and execute. In the biggest moment of the game, on the biggest down, in a situation where you had to have, it was definitely a gutsy call, but, the team came through and executed it.
So, Anthony, are there plays that teams will put in their back pocket for big games like that?
Oh, there's no doubt. And I don't know if it's specifically for the Super Bowl because nobody anticipates going to the Super Bowl. They all want to go there. So, you kind of keep it in, and maybe week 3 you throw something in, and every week you use it. The scenario hasn't been right, and you keep practicing it, and you do it one time on Friday, another time the next Friday, another time. And every game, it's like, when will it come up? When can you make it happen? When's the perfect time? And I think, honestly, it worked out perfectly for them because it was a scenario and the proper yardage in an area where, quite frankly, no one was going to expect it. And it was just a matter of just kind of getting the execution done. And I'll tell you, it's a great design. I've seen, I think Rutgers have run that play in the past. There are several teams that have actually run something like that. But, again, nobody's ever practiced that. Even the great Bill Belichick, who seems to have every play practiced when it comes to big games, didn't have his defenders in the right spot for that one at all.
And the poetic justice of the fact that the Patriots try to complete a pass to their quarterback and it goes over his fingertips and Foles looks it right in, and it's a big 6.
Yeah, listen, it's not easy catching a football now. People and fans, they see that happen and they take it for granted, but it comes with practice and practice and practice. And you're talking a play like that. I think the biggest thing when you're running a play, throwing the ball to the quarterback, is you want to put it on them. Don't make them do things that guys practice hours and hours and hours a week trying to perfect. Put it on his body so it comes right to him. He can track it. That ball, even though as easy as we look at how he should have grabbed it, that was a tough play for him to make on the move. And listen, Tom Brady is one of the slowest guys I've ever seen in general when he's moving around in the pocket. or at least scrambling. So right there, you can't expect him to go run under that ball, just put it on his body, and that's where it kind of failed on that play.
Anthony Becht with us, former NFL tight end. You played that position, Anthony. Mike and I have gone back and forth about was it the Philly special that was the big play? Was it the Brandon Graham hit and then the ball jarring loose to Derek Barnett was the big play? But how about that 4th and 1 play, since you played tight end, that 4th and 1 play that they ran to Ertz on their own 45? How about that play design?
I'll tell you, I mean, it was great execution. He kind of ran like an angle route where he kind of leans out and comes back in. But, when you get man-to-man versus defense, you got to have players that can get open and through scheme with picks and multiple tight bunch formations and making defenders kind of go over the top of each other. You saw it on a crossing route earlier in the game also, where 2 defenders for the Patriots ran into each other, so you have miscommunications. I mean, honestly, Doug Peterson took advantage of that from his play calling, and Nick Foles, I'll tell you, just was sharp as can be, and he was given time. I think the unsung heroes of this football game were the offensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think, people were patting them on the back saying they played a good game, but Nick Foles had all day to do a lot of things and let his routes work and let some of those one-on-one routes happen so that when he threw the football, guys were wide open and he was able to make the throws. So the offensive line across the board, I thought that it was the best position of the season overall for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it showed up big time in this game.
Yeah, and then the play where Ertz catches the touchdown, and I mean, he catches his guy on the inside, and the defender kind of loses his footing, and then he, leaps after 3 steps, and then, of course, all the Pittsburgh fans are saying, Jesse James, and Ertz is flying across the goal line. I mean, that play there had everybody kind of sucking wind of, are they going to really overturn this? But, we don't know what it catches anymore, but in that position there, Ertz really he made a great move to kind of get that receiver off of him there, and I thought that was a huge play in the game.
And that's just utilizing a skill set that he has in that slot position in that open area where, it's a mismatch. And, he makes a great play. And quite honestly, I thought I knew what a catch was. And, there's a couple instances in that game where one to Ertz and one to Clement where I was pretty clear, at least in my mind, that I thought I knew what the call would be. I don't believe that Clement had possession of that football with 2 feet down. But, again, I guess they look at it as if they say, it was good to go prior to that, and he went down. The ball was moving in my vision. So, to me, just on what I've seen throughout the season in other years, that to me is an issue. And, of course, the toe came down out of bounds when it was kind of being jostled in his arms. So the Ertz is very close to being what happened in the Steelers game. And, I guess what they felt was that through 3rd step down and then actually crossing the line, that he was already a runner. So he basically became what a running back would be if he were to run for a touchdown, dive through, and the ball gets, knocked out or punched out, but crosses the goal line, it becomes a touchdown. So that one was a little sketchy because when you had it in slow motion, it was so close. You're thinking, okay, well, you could go lean on the 3rd step, but bang, bang, it just looked like it was so fast. But, hey, listen, the calls are what they are. They send them to, quote-unquote, the professionals in New York. They make the calls, and I was expecting the Patriots to kind of get the favorite on that, but it looks like, they came up and the Eagles made the big.
Now, Anthony.
Well, and it was so big last night, or Sunday night, by the way, that Al Riveron was there. They didn't even have to go to New York. He was right in the stadium.
Exactly.
Well, and then, I mean, really, because many people who like the Eagles thought that their defensive line would be the difference in the game. They weren't a factor all game long until Brandon Graham finally got there. And I've said I think that's the biggest play in the history of the franchise. That strip sack. I mean, if they don't get that strip sack, we almost know what the ending of that game's going to be.
Well, I slightly disagree about the play of the defensive line of the Eagles. I thought that they put on a lot of hits on Brady throughout the game. Now, the ball may have been out of his hands and different things, but they made it uncomfortable for him. Now, he threw for 500 yards. And listen, that's not a good day if you're a defense. But I mean, listen, he's the greatest of all time, and he did his part in this football game. But I just felt like those little hits, those rushes of, Brady made some good throws under pressure where he had to kind of get it out early. A lot of blown coverages for the Eagles in that football game. And I saw it was only a matter of time before those things added up to becoming the big play. And obviously, you're right, with Graham stripping that football and knocking it down in the biggest moment of the game when you desperately need it. I thought that was an attrition of what was going on throughout that game that maybe didn't show on the stats, but ended up being big and accumulated to that point in the football game.
Anthony, I'm sure you've seen the conversation out there. Do you think that Malcolm Butler would have really made a difference in the outcome of the game?
Well, I'll tell you, being that the defense was god-awful for the Patriots, I think anybody else out there could have helped them a little bit. I'm still scratching my head on why he didn't play, but I am leaning on the fact that, whatever Bill Belichick decided and thought that he did that wasn't good enough for him to start him or play him at all in that game, I'm going to go with it. I mean, that's a bold move. Bill's there to win that football game, and there's a legacy, and other players are in place. It doesn't just affect, Butler. It affects everything. It affects the guys that have been working together for, 19 games up to that point. So, I'm sure we'll get more to that story, but I think if he was on the field, maybe he counts for anywhere between 3 to 6 points, maybe, depending on where that would be. And in that case, on the low end, it wouldn't have made a difference. I just felt like in all aspects, the Eagles won that game throughout, and they made the plays in the big situations that we would normally be talking about the Patriots doing on those downs and distances that mean something throughout the game.
Anthony Becht with us. How about your take on the Eagles' offseason decision that they have with Nick Foles? What kind of advice would you give Howie Roseman if you had his ear?
Well, just fill me in, because is he up this year, or is he still under contract?
He is under contract for one more season at about $7.5 million.
Okay, so I'm going to offer him an extension, probably a 2-year extension, and I'm going to try to get him into that 13 to 16 million range. Because listen, there's some back end pay that he truly has earned that he deserves. And when you're talking about Wentz, who's under contract for several more years at a set amount, you're willing to take a little bit more risk on him and offer him that. Now, with that being said, that might not be as much as maybe another team comes into the fray and offers him something with some type of possibility of a trade. So, there's a lot of factors there, but I think for the Eagles, trade picks, draft picks are great. You get a first round for them, especially anywhere high. You really think hard about that, but I think, the Eagles need to do the right thing in this situation. I think they have a lot of talent throughout. They really got to sit down and look at that, but I think you overpay him a little bit to be your backup guy, make him the highest paid backup quarterback in the league, and make it simple and let him enjoy that year. And, listen, you're coming off an ACL with Wentz. I mean, we all seen it. Everybody comes back, everybody's good, but there are those small percentages of accidents that happen throughout the season. You'd love to have Nick there in place, because I think anybody else except Nick might not have been able to get this job done for the Eagles.
Yeah, I agree with that portion. Like, if you're Howie Roseman, though, and somebody calls you and says, we'll give you a first-round pick, I mean, do you say, no, we need to have a secure backup, or do you say that pick is too good for us to pass up on?
I think it's easy to pass up a little bit more. I mean, it's always tough because you got to think about it, but, without Foles this year, you don't go to the Super Bowl, and it's not a conversation. So having him help the cause to making that happen. So to me, to justify the fact that there's any first-round pick in the draft that's worth taking that would ultimately have won you the Super Bowl, and I don't think there's anybody out there, especially at quarterback position, that could do that. So you can definitely help your team at certain spots, but this is a young, talented team that's really set in line to do some good things moving forward. So I think obviously there will be a conversation. It may come up. A team may do that. But in my opinion, I believe he'll stick around and he'll be an Eagle moving forward.
Final thing with Anthony Becht here, former NFL tight end. You see him doing college football work with ESPN. He does pre- and post-game work for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers radio network. And Doug Peterson, who last year people were questioning what the hell were they thinking bringing him in, and that he only got the job because of his ties to Andy Reid. He flat out outcoached Dan Quinn and Mike Zimmer, and you can make a case that he outdueled Bill Belichick. So how surprising has Peterson's really growth as a head coach been?
Listen, I think he was ready for the job. I had said this throughout the season. I was enjoying what the Eagles were doing, even when people were griping maybe early on about some of his play calling and maybe passing more than he should have been running. I thought the balance was good. I thought, if anything, he underutilized LeGarrette Blount earlier in the season, but it kind of all came together for him. But, the pieces of the puzzles were there, and this team just gained confidence week in and week out. The defense was solid, played well throughout the regular season, and then all of a sudden they felt good about what they were doing. So I think Doug Peterson, listen, it's always hard to call plays as a head coach and then be a head coach. It's very rare that coaches have success doing that. And I just felt like, for him, he really stepped up to the plate, and he understood how to do it at a younger age because he's been around guys like Andy Reid for so long, and understanding what it took to do that from a game planning standpoint week to week, yet still be a very good head coach and where guys respect and really come out there and play and fight to win for him.
Sounds kind of crazy, huh? The Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
It really does. I mean, it kind of like when I was sitting there, I was like, wow, like this all came together, with a guy that was a second-year quarterback who just basically smoked the league in the beginning for first 12 games of the season, and then you bring in a backup. It really does show how guys, when they step up their game, they play better, they do their jobs correctly, and they don't make crucial mistakes, that you are in line and you're in place to go the distance. And I'll tell you, it is unbelievable. I think it's outstanding for the Philadelphia, for the city, for the fans. But it's definitely, when I woke up the next day, wow, like Eagles are champions. Like there's no way I would have predicted that, and it's got to be an amazing feeling for everybody in Philadelphia.
And Thursday will be the parade down Broad to the Art Museum, something that many people thought they would never see in their lifetime, and it'll probably outdraw the Pope coming to Philadelphia, you would think. Anthony Becht.
I can't wait to see the aerial views for sure. I think it's going to be a lot of hooky being played at school. A lot of parents not bringing their kids to school.
They gave every school in the city is closed.
Right, off.
Yep, they already announced.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
They already announced that.
Yet, so.
Yep. All the schools in Philadelphia, they put out a tweet last night that the Philadelphia school systems, this is a once-in-a-lifetime to go to the parade. They close the schools for Thursday, so you don't have to worry about hooky. How about that? Anthony Becht, 12-year NFL tight end, Jets, Bucks, Rams, Cardinals, Chiefs, ESPN college football analyst, Tampa Bay Buccaneers pre- and post-game, and grew up in Philadelphia. You can follow him on Twitter at Anthony_Becht, Becht. And he was kind enough to jump on board and talk a little football with us. All right, man, we'll catch up soon.
You got it, Gil. Thanks, man. Take care.